There can be only one podcast, and may it be the Princes of the Universe. Hi folks, I'm Matt, and with me is no Bruce. That's right, no Bruce gonna happen today. Yeah, he decided to take some time off, which is fine because the books I'm about to review and comic books he hasn't read. Now, he has read, I believe, 2 of the books. No, he read the movie to this. We're going through all the Highlander books and comic books. I think he should have read all the comic books, because I know he read one of these series that I'm going to review today, and I gave him the other 2 to go over, but I guess he never had time to read them. He's been very busy, though. And he read the movie novel, but he said it was a long time ago, so not very familiar with him. He didn't remember the one of the comic book series I'm going to go over today, so I said let him go. He would only be involved in probably the first 3 podcasts, and then after that, he wouldn't have much else to say, because I don't think he's going to, since the Highlander TV series novels are not in Audible, Bruce is never going to read them. He is a strict Audible man now, which I understand. A lot of people are now. But it will be weird not having him or Steven on this one. Steven has not read Highlander. I don't know if he'd be that interested in seeing it, though I think he's watching this series, or he wants to. Either way, though, let me just set up with just a short introduction for how this came about. So, I love Highlander, the TV show, and the movies. The movies are fine. The first one's good. The second one's garbage. The third one's okay. And we shall never speak of the ones that are based off the TV show, because they are not very good. They're my least favorite. If you got to give them numbers, Highlander 4 and 5, which 5 being thing called The Source is the worst thing in the world. The worst thing in the world. I'd rather watch 2 than 5 or whatever. The Source. Highlander, The Source. Awful, awful, awful. But I remember I was talking on someone else's channel. I want to say it was the Geek Addicts channel, Matthew the Geek's Addict, and they do something called paper movies or paper book movies. I can't remember the actual title. It's I love the show. What they're doing is they're reading the novelization of a movie and explaining about some of the differences. And I never knew that movie novelizations had so many. That's because the very, very, very few I've read were the Star Wars books. And those, with the exception of maybe episode 3, are basically a straightforward plot where there's a few things here and there that are new, but overall it's basically what you see in the movie. And I didn't think that, getting a movie novel for anything was that good. And then one of my friends on the stream said, well, I actually have read the Highlander novel, and it's fantastic. There's a lot of stuff in the Highlander novel that you don't hear in the movie. And I was like, really? Because to me, of course, like I said, only reading Star Wars, especially the first 3 books, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, you just looked at the film and wrote what you saw. That was basically it. They just mailed those in. But supposedly, that's the minority of people. Because watching this paperback movies thing, I'm saying, wow, that was in there, this was in there. And I should know better, because books, and I guess I got to say that it's mainly, if there's a movie based off a book, that's different. That's totally different than if you have a book based off a movie, And that's what I've read a lot. Now, something like Jaws and Jurassic Park, oh yeah, man, those are great. You should definitely read those. Jaws is the better movie, even though Jaws the book is pretty good, and Jurassic Park is the better novel by leagues and bounds. It really, even the first one, which I love the first Jurassic Park movie, but the book is just fantastic. Now, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about movies based off books. I'm talking about books based off movies, especially movie novelizations there. And I thought a lot of them were just kind of, we'll just mail this in and we'll forget about it. And that's really what I thought it was. But then I've come to see that, it's a little bit different. And that's very interesting. Now, you may have noticed that my voice has changed slightly because I'm using one of my old mics. Unfortunately, the new equipment, the nice new equipment that I have, was not working. I discovered that by accident on one of my previous podcasts this past week, and I was like, shut the front door. These things aren't even working. They're not even recording. It was like my computer audio picking up my voice. Made it even worse. So that is super sad, because I could see the instruments moving up and down of my voice, and I thought it was recording because it looked like it was plugged in. And when I put mute, they said, well, we can still hear you. I was like, wait, what? how can you hear me? I thought, well, maybe it's the second mic picking up. No, the thing's not just picking up the whole thing. And it's really weird. I thought, well, maybe my USB port is not working. But then I plug in this one, it works fine. It picks it up and everything. So I don't know what the issue is. Really disappointing because it's a nice piece of equipment donated by a good friend of mine. And I'm too stupid, I guess, to make it work. Even though I know I had it working at the beginning, and I haven't touched a thing on this thing. Just unplug it and plug it back in, but it's not picking it up. It does not notice those nice mics anymore. So I don't know what I did. I may bring a buddy of mine in and see if he can figure it out. But regardless, for now, I'll just have to suffice doing it the old school way. Now, if it's just me, hopefully my voice won't be too bad on this mic, but I haven't used this mic. My little girls have messed around with it. Now that I say that, maybe I need to look it up myself. I'll check the settings later. I don't know. If it sounds like garbage, I'll just fix it on the next one. Sorry, folks. Sorry. But anyway, what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of explain. I'm still going back and explaining what I'm going through and why I'm doing this. First off, of course, Highlander, very important series to me. I love the TV show. TV show I was a big fan because of the TV show. And I thought the TV show was fantastic. Well, I knew they had books. I always knew they had books. I always wanted to read them, but I just never got around to it because I was, neck deep into Star Wars books. And those things were coming out all the time. And in between my busy life, I didn't have time to read a billion books. Or I didn't make the time. I shouldn't say have the time. I didn't make the time to read that many books. So I always wanted them. I just never got them. Well, then when he talked about the movie novelization, I ordered it because I wanted to read it. And I read it and I loved it. And I said, well, you know what? Those Highlander TV series novels are, the most I paid was $7, and that was with shipping. A lot of these are just cheap little paperbacks you can get for super cheap used. And I got most of them on eBay for like $3, $5. That's free shipping and stuff because they were just worthless. No one really wants them. I guess the Highlander fans out there aren't really pursuing these like Star Wars fans can consume Legends content. And of course, like I said, there aren't that many, but there are about, and I forgot to count them up before I came in here, but 8, 9 or so. Let me see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I believe. So there's 10 books, there's 3 comic book series, and then the novelization. That's all they came out with. So that is if you want to call this, the expanded universe for Highlander. And I was like, oh, this is very doable. I actually found the entire collection of Highlander comic books for like $30. That's way cheaper than what you'll get. Comic books is probably what you're going to have to pay the most for. But someone sold his entire individual collection. One I got as a trade. One was a trade. I think the American Dream was a trade. But I got them all. I was like, oh, right on. And from there on out, just started reading through them. Comic books are very easy for me to read. I can read through a dozen of them easily in one sit down. The novelizations were very quick too, especially the TV show novelizations. They only run a little over 200 pages, which, oh gosh, I read 200 pages today just chugging through books. So I was finishing most of them in a day, at the most 2 days, and just bully through them all. Even the last one, which is a collection of stories, is probably the biggest one. I can't remember how many pages it was, but because it's a collection of stories, it really went faster than what I think. I think the print was a little bigger too. I don't know, but anyway, I'm not getting to any of those. I'll get to those later. The ones that I want to talk about today are the 2 comic book series. Now, I remember when I was reading through all these, someone goes, are you going to do reviews on these? I said, yeah. And then later on, someone said, hey, if you're doing reviews on these, you got to do these on the podcast, right? Because, as you know, Prince of the Universe is kind of a play on Highlander. When Bruce and I were sitting around, I was thinking of an idea for us. I said, well, I don't want to call it something Star Wars because everyone has a Star Wars podcast name. And I was like, what's something else that's really nerdy that we both love that I don't hear much about? And I said, well, you know what? No one talks about Highlander anymore. So why not? Why not just go ahead and, call it a Highlander, a name? And I was like, okay, what can we call it? The McLeod Podcast? No. Boring. I was like, oh, the Princes of the Universe. That sounds good. And I told Bruce, and he really liked it. So that's kind of how things came about. So obviously, from the very start, and we've reviewed the movies, and I think we've talked about the TV show on this podcast at least once. But we absolutely love that show. I love Highlander. I finally found a Watcher pendant, which came free in one of the VHS cassette tapes. If you order them, online or on the telephone. Excuse me, not online. Over telephone, they mail you this this pendant. And I found it people were selling it for ridiculous prices on eBay. But then someone just sold it for a decent price. I think it was $10. That's with shipping. And I was like, done. And so I got the little Watcher pendant. I always loved that little Watcher pendant. They always gave you something free in each VHS set. And I remember, because Bruce always ordered them. And one was a letter opener. It was a little mini Duncan sword, but it was a letter opener. Cute. I can't remember what any of the other ones were, but they were little things. It may have been a coaster, poster. I don't remember. But I remember that Watcher pendant was the only one I thought was really cool. Bruce never wore it, but he didn't want to give it to me either. And I was like, oh man, that Watcher pendant's cool, man. And I think he lost it now, but I finally tracked one down because I remembered it when I was reading through these books. I went, man, I want that Watcher pendant. And sure enough, I found someone who gave me the right value, which is $10. I wouldn't pay more than that. And came in the mail, and I started wearing it while I was reading the books. I don't know why. I got a Stargate necklace when I was watching through Stargate again. I was like, yeah, I want some Stargate. Now I'm not going to do this for Stargate. Stargate's expanded universe doesn't really fit. It's not in line with the regular TV show and movies. So not doing anything like that. But I was shocked to find out when I was doing a deep study that for the most part, generally, everything connects. Everything connects. And the books and the comic books, it all happens in one universe. And that's kind of rare. Star Wars had it for the longest time. Legends had it for the longest time. But to find another genre that does the same thing is hard. I know Indiana Jones is one as well. I've thought in the past about doing it, but I thought the first two novels were okay. It didn't pull me in, and I wasn't feeling it. And I had my finger on the trigger. I located all the comic books, the children's books, the novels, and I was about to buy them all. I think the whole thing was going to cost me $400, which was really cheap. But I said, no, I don't want to get into Indiana Jones. And Indiana Jones is still intact as far as I know. If they make a new movie, it won't disturb any of the other stuff. Now, I know they really don't care about that, but back in the day, Lucasfilm did want continuity in the, not as popular Indiana Jones series. So that was nice. Now, Spartacus has 2 books in a 4-issue comic book series that is in sync with the TV show, but that's 2 books in a short-run comic book series. That's not very impressive. Firefly has one, but the comic books are awful. They're so bad. I've stopped getting them because they were just such a waste of time. And the novelizations are super good. They're super good. I take that back. There's one comic book that I really enjoyed. It took place after the movie, which no one wants to do stories after the movie. But it did, and I found that one interesting. I can't remember what it was called, but that was the one interesting Firefly comic book. Other than that, though, I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, I don't know if, I'm sure they had books. I'm sure they did. I didn't look into this. I know they had comic books that took place in between seasons of the show. Dark Horse used to do comic books of Buffy the Vampire Slayer that took place in between seasons 2 and 3, 4 and 5, stuff like that. And those are really good. I can't remember who took it over afterwards, IDW or something. And it takes, Buffy season 8 on comic books, and I got it, and it's crap. It's crap written by fanboys. Even the Angel series, which takes place after season 5, I tried to read and tried to get into, but eventually just gave up on that too because it was just garbage. So it's hard to keep the integrity, I guess, of a show through a comic book. No, that's not true. That's not true because there's writers who've done it. But just whoever they get it when they buy these IPs, it looks like they don't care at all. They do not care at all. Comic books don't care at all. And you may see where this is going now, as you know what 2 stories I'm going to review first. But with Highlander, I was impressed when I did my homework on it and found out that everything connects with the TV show and the movies. It's like, oh, well, in that case, and it wasn't that hard of a buy. I don't know. I couldn't total all this up, but I want to say it was like $50. The $30 comic books. No, even with the $30 comic books, I think it maybe $60 total is what I spent. So that's not bad. And I got a lot of reading out of it. So it was a lot of fun. But today I just wanted to go through The first two comic book series. I am trying to do this in chronological order, not as best I know how because it's very simple to get this chronological order. There is one comic book series that takes place within the movie universe and not really the TV show. I don't know why people even bother doing that because I think the TV show, well, no, as a Highlander fan, I think the TV show is more popular just because it expanded the mythos more or the lore more than the movies did. In fact, there is a Highlander fan site. It looks like it hasn't changed its website since 1995. It's a very old-looking website, but I was shocked to find there are a few people who are still posting today, right now, on this website. There's a book, I'll review it later on, but it was written in Germany. And this guy, just recently, this is earlier this summer, he went ahead and started getting it translated through a friend of his, and they translated the entire book, and he was posting up a chapter every week of the book, and he just finished like a month or so ago. And I was like, oh, cool. I read it. Wasn't good. I'll give you my review on it later. But, and then he also, there's some audio dramas. That's the only other thing. There's some audio dramas that came out over in the UK, by Big Finish Audio. They're impossible to find on eBay and super expensive. You can find them. They only went 2 seasons, but seasons were only like 4 episodes each. However, they did get the voice actors, like Mythos was in one, Kronos was in one, Duncan was in a few as well. And I think Joe may have been brought in to record one. Now, I don't know what all the adventures were about, and you can't find them anywhere online. There was a library, I think, that had them for rent, but I don't have a library card for it. Someone else did. I tried to get, they couldn't. They said, well, just go to your own library. My library doesn't use that app, but I asked them anyway. I said, hey, if this library uses a different app, but they have something, would you have it? They said, yeah, probably. And the 2 ladies were happy to help me out, and they used to watch Highlander, and they're older than me, and they're like, ooh, they used to love some Duncan MacLeod, obviously, back in the day. But so they were excited about it coming in, and they were looking at maybe listening to them after I was done with them. But unfortunately, no, they couldn't get them. It was a big bust. And I don't know where else to find them, so screw it. I couldn't listen to those. I really want to, even though they probably weren't the best. Maybe, I don't know, it had the actual voice actors, so it couldn't have been too bad. I would have loved to listen to those. I mean, that's something, I think the season 2 is very short because it's just one 4-part series on the 4 Horsemen, which, what? And I don't know how cool it was, but I just know they're so hard to find. And it sucks because 10 years ago, I think is when they did these, or I think late 2009, 2008, 9, and 10 or something like that. And I could have gotten them all for probably super cheap, but I didn't even know they existed, and I wasn't just actively looking for Highlander stuff. Because I didn't think I thought a lot of these books from the Highlander TV series were basically just because they had pictures of episodes. I went, oh, it's just the novelization of that episode. Because certain TV shows would do that. They just give you a novelization of an episode you saw on TV. Why? I have no idea. No idea why they do that. But I knew they did, and that's why I thought Highlander, the TV show series books, were. And then it turns out I was wrong. They actually happen in between and kind of bring in some characters from the TV show at times, which is very cool. And so that was really nice to know. And I'm going to review each one of those, probably give it its own podcast. I don't know. It just seems, these are going to be kind of short, just like the other ones were. Well, the other ones weren't because I had Bruce and Steven with me. But if it's just me, I'm going to be short, straight, and to the point. I'm going to try, we may have spoilers in all these. Actually, we will have spoilers in all these because I do want to talk about them. I won't go into too much detail, but I do want to talk about the beginning and end. So if... and the rare possibility you're someone who is actually going to sit down and read all these, this may be good. Listen to my podcast, listen to them all, then wait a year, then you'll forget what I said and go back and get them. Just make a check mark saying, okay, these are the books or these are the comic books I need to get. I want to read. And it's been a year, so I don't remember what Matt says. So let me try it again and, see what I think. So I guess do it that way. But I may even tell you of things not to buy as well. I'll definitely say it was not all good. I wish it was. I had hopes. I had really big hopes. But whenever they take on an IP, a comic book, a novelization, I want to see they take the same care as they did with the Star Wars series. But what I'm finding is a lot of people didn't. Now, the exception is Spartacus. Both of those books felt exactly like episodes. I mean, good episodes, too. They were solid. The novelizations for Firefly feel like episodes. They are great. They are fantastic. Absolutely love them. The comic book series for Spartacus was small little short stories. They weren't bad. They weren't good. It was all right. But I hate it when people take the book or take the comic book and they decide to do nothing with it. And that's what happened in this series from time to time, too. So anyway, let me go ahead. I'm going to quickly review both of these series. The first one I'm going to talk about is Way of the Sword. Now, this is one of the comic book series, and this, to my knowledge, happens the earliest in the timeline. Obviously, when I say earliest, there's a ton of flashbacks of stuff that happens way earlier. That's how Highlander is. But in current time, this is the earliest adventure we see, and of course we do see flashes back to the old days. So anyway, in this one, total spoilers here. Of course, Kurgan is like an evil captain of a ship. This is the year 1804, and he's a deadly pirate. You can see Kurgan as a pirate, right? And Connor, not Duncan. Blech. Connor is, on a ship too, and they fight on this ship. Swashbuckling adventure, two immortals finally duking it out. Even though that may go against what the movie kind of indicated, but I'll get to that in another podcast. But anyway, Kurgan steals Ramirez's sword from Duncan. Duncan loses it, falls overboard, gets washed ashore, and Kurgan has the sword. And then he's never seen it again. You're like, wait, so he didn't have Ramirez's sword the whole time? Yeah, it's true. Until 20 years before the movie. Because in 1966, which is when this comic book series takes place now, is the current time, Rachel's a young girl, which I do think is kind of cool. Because in the movie we saw Rachel as an older woman, his secretary, which is actually his daughter. But here she's younger, obviously, because it's 20 years later. And that was neat. But he goes back to get his sword because he found out that's going to be at this auction. And they're auctioning off this rare piece sword. And he realizes, oh, that's Ramirez's sword. I need to go back and get it. Now, the whole time it's like, well, does Connor need to not? And I'm trying to think here. This may go against a lot of things. Connor didn't have that many flashbacks. But, you have to be careful because if there's even one flashback where he had Ramirez's sword, you're like, well, I hope it was before 1804. But not taking away his sword, I don't see what the point of this was. In fact, I don't see what the whole point of this comic book series was anyway, because in it, he meets another evil immortal. And this evil immortal used to be a student of Ramirez's too, even though Connor has never heard of him. Now, this is this is another issue that I have. Connor hasn't heard of this evil immortal. This is 1966. Of course, it's 20 years prior to according to the movie, this is the quickening, the time that everything comes together, and they end the business. And you think a lot of these Highlanders know each other. I'm not Highlanders. A lot of these immortals, know each other. And you think Connor, if he's been around for years, and this immortal's been around for even longer, you'd think maybe they'd run across each other in the past couple of 100 years. I don't know. It seems like I know that's far-fetched because it's a big world out there, right? But at the same time, if you look at the TV show, Duncan knows everything. And he has a great memory, too, of every single person he's ever met throughout his hundreds of years. He has, I guess when you're immortal, you also have a generic, a photographic memory as well. I don't know. But I just thought it weird that Connor's never met him before. Connor didn't know who he was. Well, he and Connor fight, of course, later on. They end up fighting. I can't remember why. But then Connor gets the sword back. Ta-da! Now, I know it does take place into the TV series. There's a few things. I'm trying to add some mystery here and not give everything away. But I know it ties into the TV series a little bit. So it has that. But it just seems like that was it. You have to make up, evil immortals. That's in like every episode just about of the regular Highlander show. But I just kind of wonder. I mean, do we really need a story about how he lost, and what does Way of the Sword mean? He lost the sword and he found his way back? I don't know. But he captured it to just 20 years, and it's a good thing too. Instead of the little claymore he was using, I can't remember what he was using in the comic book. But I don't know, this story felt like it just had no life. It just didn't have any inspiration or anything. And to be honest, I wouldn't get it. I'd skip it. There's no point to this story. So that's one you can scratch off your collection list if you are so inclined to do so. Now, the next comic book series I'm going to tear into is The American Dream. Now, this was the last one that came out. I think this came out last year or 2 years ago. I can't remember. But it was the most recent one. And it takes place in the movie universe as far as... it does take place in the movie universe. It does for sure. In fact, if I would have known that, I probably wouldn't have bought it. Because the art looks awful in this. And that's the other thing. The art doesn't look good at any time in the comic books. It's like they could have gotten a great artist and done a great, interesting comic book, but they just get crap. They get crap artists for these comic books that have these IPs. I guess they say, well, you know what? It says Highlander on it, so Highlander groupies will buy it. Yeah, but if you make it really good, you put a good story behind it, you put a good art behind it, then other people may pick it up not knowing it's from a TV series and read it and enjoy it. But that seems to be the MO for people who get these IPs. They're like, you know what, let's just slap the label on it and sell it. Just get whoever to draw. Get whoever to write. Here, I'll write it. Hold on, let me get my kid. Kid, give me that story you wrote in third grade. Here you go. But anyway, in The American Dream, this takes place a few days before the movie, roughly. And there are only 6 immortals left. Yes, in the movie there are 4 immortals left when we get to the movie. But in this comic book series, there are 6. So, of course, we're going to focus on whatever happened to those other 2. The other 2 is a monk named Vezebek, I guess. And so the monk's named Vezebek. He's kind of the good guy. The bad guy is Hook. Hook with an E. So I don't know if it's Hooky or whatever, but it's Hook. And Hook, that's a cool name. And he's the second dangerous immortal out there. Of course, Kurgan's the first. Nice to know that the first and second, they label these as evil and good. I don't know. I guess Connor ranks number 1 in the good immortals. But anyway, oh man, Hook is just evil. First off, it's the monk story is kind of just tired out. It's the same thing we've seen with Darius before. It just stupid jokes and everything, and it's just no good. It's just no good. That is such a generic character. It's uninspired. And Hook, on the other hand, even though he seemed a little bit interesting, Hook's someone who is very evil. We know this because we see flashbacks of him doing awful things and killing people. We know he likes to kill mortals. Okay, but he takes pleasure in killing mortals, so that makes him super evil. Okay. Oh, he takes an eye, from them. That's his trophy, his eyes, even though it's never shown in any of the flashbacks that he ever took the eye of someone. But they made, because it sounds cool. We can't draw that, can we? No, we can't draw him taking an eye out. Okay, we'll just say that that's what he does. Okay, yeah, we'll do it that way. I can only see, who cares? Who cares? They try to build him up really bad, but if you're not going to show this stuff for whatever reason, then don't. Try to change the story. But Matt, not only does he kill immortals, he loves doing it too. Oh, boo-hoo-hoo. We're supposed to hate him. Like I said, he could have been interesting. He had a neat look to him. He had a cool name maybe. But it was just lazy writing. I've seen lazy writing on that one. Hook is not very interesting. Sure, he's evil. He likes to kill a bunch of people. He's sadistic like Kurgan. Kurgan has, and of course, you got to admit that Kurgan, of course, had an actor who portrayed him in a movie. You have a great novel about the Kurgan. But with Hook, there's really no background, and the background they make is very weak and very flimsy. Now, you got it. This ends with Duncan going after Hook. Ooh, and they have a big old battle at the end. Spoilers on who wins, right? Not Duncan, excuse me, Connor. Connor's going after Hook. So Connor takes on Hook, and then Kurgan, of course, takes on and kills Vezalek, and they're fighting across a bay. Both of these fights happen across the bay in New York, and they chop off heads at the same time. They see each other's lightning, so they know they're both out there. He knows the Kurgan is in New York now, and of course it's going to pick up where you watch the movie. I get why they made this comic book, because people who love the movie and didn't get to see the show, yeah, that's like very few fans, and they don't buy comic books. Well, let's do it for them. The American Dream, 0 cents. 0 cents. I don't understand the title. Maybe it's something witty, and I'm just too stupid to get it. This is another one you can skip. Feel free to skip. It's not that good. I did not feel it was good at all. In fact, I tried. This is one I think Bruce had. I tried to give him a trade paperback, because I know when Bruce borrows comic books, you either don't get them back or you're going to get them back a couple of years. Either way, though, I was fine with him keeping them. Because I don't like any of them. I don't like any of those comic books. I was like, you sure you don't have American Dream? Do you want it? I mean, to me, those two comic book series are a waste of time. Utter waste of time. Do not go there. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there, because my next one, I got a big one. I want to go through the movie novelization next in chronological order. So I'll see you next time on Princes of the Universe.